G'day cocktail lovers, it's barrel time again. I decanted the previous contents of this barrel, so I'm going to keep it in use. This time I'm going classic. I'm going to make a whiskey old fashioned, but a whole litre of it, and then I'm going to barrel age it for 3-4 weeks. We'll see how it tastes. I'll taste it along the way, and when I think it's ready, I'll get it out and do a full video of the tasting. Previously, I barrel aged some Maker's Mark bourbon, and I wanted some untouched Maker's Mark to compare, and I had foolishly not set any aside. I poured it all into the barrel, so I went and bought another bottle of Maker's Mark. So I've got a lot of Maker's Mark, which I don't drink very often. So this is going to form the majority of the old fashioned, although I'm going to put a few different and bolder flavoured bourbons and whiskies in there, and it should come out something quite interesting. But the first thing I'm going to do is do 400 mils of Maker's Mark into a jug. I'm using one more American whiskey in here, a single malt from Texas, the Balcones. I think they literally just call this their single barrel. This was 53%. For me, this one's got really strong chocolate and coffee notes in it. I think that'll carry through, even though I'm only putting in 100 mils of the Balcones. The rest of the whiskies are all going to be Australian, starting with this one from Archie Rose, their whiskey gone awry. Yes, it's a rye whiskey. It's also over 50% alcohol by volume. So another pretty punchy one, 100 mils of Archie Rose whiskey gone awry going in. This whiskey is from the Starward Distillery, their Tawny. This was aged in, well, to make it easy, I say port wine barrels. Legally, you're not allowed to call that sort of wine made in Australia port anymore, so they call it tawny. But in terms of flavours, for you to understand the flavours this imparts, it's the equivalent of aging it in port barrels, so 100 mils of Starward's Tawny going in. Another whiskey from the Archie Rose Distillery. This one is finished in what they call high-test molasses rum casks. So this actually picks up some of those sweeter rum flavours, like you get that sort of fruitiness. I've tasted this, you do get a little bit, it's the sort of raisin, almost Christmas cake flavours subtly coming through. So 100 mils of this is going in. The final whiskey is another one from the Starward Distillery, they call Unexpeated. This was aged in barrels that had previously had a peated Islay Scotch whiskey. I think it was Lefroy, but they're not allowed to actually say, but it's very peated. So even though they were only aged in barrels that had peated whiskey in it, and this whiskey itself's not peated, some really good smoke notes have come through, and I think even though only putting 100 mils of this into the barrel, there's going to be some little subtle smoky undertones, which I think will work really well. We need to add our sweetener to the barrel, so I'm going to add 150 mils of sugar syrup in there as well. If you wanted to actually use sugar, you could just mix some sugar in with the whiskies, but I'm making my life easier and I'm adding 150 mils of sugar syrup. The final touch is bitters. I'm going to add 50 mils of bitters, and I'm going to do a blend. It's going to be 2 parts Angostura, 1 part orange bitters and 1 part chocolate bitters. Altogether 50 mils of bitters going in for the barrel. And that's that. I'm going to set the barrel aside. It's somewhere where the temperature is relatively stable, and I'll test it at about the 2-week mark, and if I think it needs more time, then the 3-week, and then maybe ultimately the 4-week mark. And when I think it's ready for a full-on tasting, I'll bring it out and do a video and let you know what I think. One little note, apart from the Maker's Mark, the other whiskies I'm putting in vary between 48 and 53% alcohol by volume. So they're all pretty punchy. It's going to make it a bit hot. So what I'm going to do is keep it in a bottle when I decant it, but I am going to stir it over ice in my mixing glass and then pour it into a rocks glass to actually serve the drink, because I think it needs a little bit of dilution. Sometimes with the bottled cocktails, I just keep them in the fridge, but in this case, I'm going to want that dilution. So I'll just keep the bottle at room temperature, and when I want to serve up a drink, I'll stir it on ice and then pour it into a glass. And we'll see how that goes. I'll see you, well, you'll see me in a couple of seconds. I'll see you in 3 or 4 weeks. After 3 weeks, I decanted the old fashioned, poured some over ice, stirred it for about 20 seconds to chill it and get a little bit of dilution, and then poured it into my favourite rocks glass over a big chunk of ice. And here we have the finished product. Oh, the combination of being able to make a blend because I did it in the volume I did, so there's a lot of different elements in here, and then putting it in the barrel smooths it out a bit, and it's accentuated the smoky notes from some of the whiskies. Quality old-fashioned. Yet again, another win for the barrel. Plenty more going on with the barrels. If you like that sort of thing, keep tuned over the next weeks and months. There'll be a few more experiments I'll be revealing. But in the meantime, I hope you look after yourself, and until I see you again, cheers!